Welcome to another episode of Click for Content where you've clicked. So let's talk content. Today, we're going to be talking about the boom of the gig economy, where it comes from, and why so many writers are opting to go the freelance route. And to talk about this topic in a more professional way, I've got the freelanciest freelancer who ever freelance wrote. My good friend, the wonderful, talented Nick Bouchard. Take a look. Would love to start out by learning how long you've been freelancing.
Yeah, I've been freelancing on and off for almost 10 years. I started, when was it? In 2015 or so, 2016. I think like a lot of millennials who went to university or college as the Americans call it, because their parents were like, "Oh, go to college and you'll get a job guaranteed." And then got out of college was like, I don't think I was supposed to get a call center job with my college degree. And I kind of wanted to get out of that. And I'd done call centers. I've done retail now as well. And I've done, what's the other one? Oh yeah, food service is the one I haven't done. That's the one I'm missing.
Hmm.
Anyway, I didn't have a lot of marketable skills and I didn't really want to work in the field of my degree. I did sociology. So the fields were either research, teaching, or the government, pretty much.
Hmm.
And none of that was really appealing to me. So I started on Fiverr, and it was just like one of like five things I was doing at the time. Like I tried Amazon FBA, which is where you go and buy stuff from your local stores that are cheaper than on Amazon, and then you send it into Amazon, and then Amazon sells it, and you make a little bit of money. It's like
What?
reverse drop. It's like reverse drop shipping, because drop shipping is basically you find a product somewhere, and then you make like a basic website, and when
Hmm.
people order from you, you ship it from some other website.
Yeah.
But this is like the evil twin that's more work than drop shipping
Yeah,
and makes
that's
you
so
less
much work.
money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had like a bunch of failed experiments like that in my
Hmm.
backlog, and writing was just one of the things I tried because at the time Fiverr was still like, you pay somebody $5
Yeah.
and they'll do something, and it
Yeah.
wasn't completely flooded with people the way it is now.
Hmm.
So I started offering, I think, 250 words a copy for $5, and I would
Oh.
just write anything. Like people would ask me to write something, I would just write it. I've like that way I wrote taglines for ads, I wrote video scripts, I wrote like motivational speeches, like tons
Hmm.
of stuff like that, and I just grinded it out.
Yeah.
After that, I started finding content mills,
Hmm.
which if anybody watching this doesn't know what they are, they're a place where the good thing is you can write for them as much as you want because they
Hmm.
have no shortage of work, but you'll be paid like pennies a word. So it's not really a career building thing, but it makes you really good at working with editors and taking
Hmm.
feedback and just learning to write really fast. I started putting out my feelers to like online,
Hmm.
blogs and stuff, and I managed to find a couple that would pay to have me write for them.
Hmm.
And I kind of slowly started to build a portfolio that way. And then that led to in 2019, at the end of 2019, where I got my first full-time job in as a marketing copywriter, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And you freelanced kind of like on and off throughout your time at the full-time gig, right? As well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
While I was full time, I had kept one or two of the freelance gigs that weren't too much work,
Mm.
and then the pandemic happened. But I think one of the interesting things about the pandemic, without getting too tangential, is
Hmm.
if you there are a lot of people who suffered a lot career-wise during the pandemic because their work just
Hmm.
completely stopped. If you are in tech, though, you're fine. I think a
Yeah.
lot of tech people, for them, as shitty as this is, the pandemic was a good thing for them because it like allowed them to just kind of focus on working a whole bunch and
Yeah.
ride the sort of massive growth spike that a lot of tech companies got through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So during the heart of the pandemic, I kind of just worked at the full-time gig, and
Hmm.
then when I moved from a low-cost living area to a high-cost living area, and my salary wasn't keeping up, then I started freelancing again. It started with my manager at the time, who was also freelancing on the side, giving me one of his clients that he didn't have time for anymore. And
Yeah.
I sort of piled up a little bit of extra freelance work as I was working full time, and
Mm.
then I stopped working full time and
Mm.
went into freelancing full time.
Oh, okay, sick. That makes sense. I was gonna ask, like, what made you want to go into freelancing, but I guess you were just
Mhm.
kind of firing on all cylinders and seeing what stuck.
I spent like 6 months to a year just trying thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, and then
Hmm.
freelance writing was the one that sort of met the intersect of I am good at this and people
Hmm.
will pay for this. And
Yeah,
that's sort of why I've stuck with it.
interesting. Because I know, like, as an aside, everyone, that
Hmm.
Nick is also like a fantasy author, and so like the love of writing has stretched beyond like you're working in tech or haven't you always had that in you? And so, but you never considered it like as a career outside of being a novelist?
So I think the funny thing about that is if I had paid attention, there
Mm.
were tons of signs that this is what I would end up doing. I I started writing fiction before I started writing for a living. Like I was
Mm.
writing fan fiction in high school,
Mhm, yeah.
and like I wasn't just writing fan fiction. Like I was writing fan fiction on forums, and I was like super active on forums writing fan fiction,
Yeah.
and I found like communities doing that, and I did a bunch of that. But when I was in high school, I had a French teacher who was really pushing me to write more, and who was always praising my writing abilities. And she went out of her way to, I think it was a poem that I wrote. She submitted it to some local writing competition. I won $50
Hell
in that
yeah.
writing competition, which when you're like 14 is like,
Isn't really
whoa,
knowledge.
you know? Um, so I think that was sign number one, I
Mhm.
think, where it's like maybe there's something there I should pursue. And
Yeah.
then coming out of high school, I think I there there's people who they know almost their whole lives what they're going to do when they
Mm.
grow up, right? And
Mhm.
I envied those people for a while, because coming out of high school is like I have to do more school. I hate school,
Yeah.
and I got to pick something, and I don't want to do anything.
Mhm.
And it was my mom at the time who had told me like, well, you write well. Your teachers all say you write well, so why don't you
Mhm.
go to school for that? I was like, there's no money in that.
That's so funny. Oh my God, if you had just taken the like path right in front of you.
Yeah, and my best grades were always in like English,
Yeah, okay.
French,
Yeah.
philosophy. Philosophy because you're reading books and you're writing.
Mhm.
So like there were a bunch of flashing neon signs, and then I
Mhm.
just kind of went like this,
You sure did.
and yeah, took the long way around.
Yeah, the scenic route. You had to stop at the
Yeah.
call center first. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. A really worthwhile stop. Really want to make sure you stop there for as long as you can.
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Being in the career so long, what would you say, like, are some of the misconceptions people have about writing when you tell them you're a freelance writer?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, from I think from people getting into the career, like the
Mhm.
misconceptions that they have,
Mhm.
um, I think there are some people who treat it a little too much like an art and are a little too
Oh,
precious about the stuff that they write.
okay.
Like when I have evidence for this. I'm not just randomly shaking my fist at the youths. Um, but when I got my full-time gig as a marketing copywriter,
Mhm.
I know that I was competing against one other person.
Mm.
And when I initially, so this company does pilot projects when you go in, so you get paid to do a test run of what you're going to be doing for a living while you're there. And for
Mhm.
me, that was writing a blog post,
Yeah.
and I'd been burned by bad managers up to that point, and I had to write a blog post about like management or something like that, and I was borderline vitriolic in my post about
Real
managers.
scornful.
And
Yeah, yeah.
then, yeah, and then I present my project, and
Mhm.
then there's three managers in the room with me who kind of just all look at me and are like, you're writing for managers
Yeah.
and you're
That
talking trash about managers, so this doesn't really work. And
Yeah.
so that first post, they were like, you would need to like rewrite this and rework this, but they were
Mhm.
like, here's our feedback, go and rewrite
Mhm.
it. And I
Mhm.
took the feedback and I went to rewrite it. And
Right.
then after that, I rewrote it pretty heavily, and I
Mhm.
submitted it, and it was good. And they told me after the fact that one of the reasons that they hired me is because I took that feedback so well. Because I think
Oh, good.
I can imagine a lot of writers, would get that and would
Mhm.
either they go one of two ways. They would either crumble
Mhm.
under that and just be frozen and able to move forward, or they would get angry and hurt, and their pride would take over, and they would debate
Yeah.
every point of the feedback, and then they don't move forward either.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about writing for marketing,
Mhm.
it's not an art. It serves a purpose. And
Yeah.
it's either whether you're trying to generate leads, you're trying to convert to signups or sales, or
Yeah.
even just trying to rank on Google. You're writing towards that purpose,
Yeah.
um, and that means you don't get to be as creative as in
Mhm.
other artistic pursuits or in other writing pursuits.
Yeah, 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 fair. So the misconception being like people think that we take it all to heart and everything is like a personal, precious little flower, but like it can't be when you're a freelance
You can't
writer.
you can't you
You
can't
have
approach
to.
it that way. No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think from the employer side of things or the client side of things,
Yeah. Mhm.
I think there's a misconception that the words just happen. You just like you sit a writer at a desk and you
Yeah.
give them 8 hours and you go,
Yeah.
all right, you have 8 hours, write me 5,000 words, and they
Yeah.
just go, okay,
And we
boss,
just
and then just
turn on.
type, type,
Yeah.
type, 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 type. All right, 8,000 words done. And I think we have that misconception about ourselves as well. Like I
Mhm.
know when I'm doing my planning for the week or my planning for the day, I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, I'm gonna write this blog post. It's about 1,500 words. I can do
Mhm.
that in about 4 or 5 hours. And there's some days where I do it in 4 or 5 hours, and there's some days where I have to drag myself across hot pavement to get to the words on the other side of the street, and
Yeah.
then bring them back one by one
Yeah.
to like build this draft, and it takes me a day or a day and a half.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, painful.
it's you know freelance writing might not be like writing fiction or writing for other creative purposes, but it
Mhm.
still has the complicated alchemy, which is you have thoughts in brain, you must transform thoughts in brain in words on screen that
Mhm.
transform into thoughts in brain of the reader that are close to what you had in your own brain.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not a linear process most of the time.
Not as nice as that would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
How, like, most noticeably has the industry changed since you started?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's already a couple things that come to mind. I think the elephant in the room, although that's not a great analogy because everybody's talking about it, is
Mm.
AI.
Yeah.
When I started, like I think when I started, Google was talking about its AI products in a very sci-fi sort of way. Like I remember
Mhm.
they had around that time they had a presentation where they showed an AI like assistant booking an appointment for you or something. And
Yeah.
at that time, it was like, wow, imagine a future where this can happen. Uh, the world is very different now. And I think the way that that's really manifesting in freelance writing
Mm.
is I think a lot of clients are experimenting with it and they're trying to see just how much they can get away with doing without suffering the consequences. Those consequences might be plagiarism, if
Right.
something looks too much like something else,
Yeah.
or it's, getting deranked by Google. I've been a couple Google updates in the past, 3 or 4 years that have, tanked posts that were obviously, fully AI generated or AI enough that they
Yeah.
they can close to that. Um, I think for clients, the consequence of that is they get a finished product with AI,
Mhm.
but they
Mhm.
don't really know how to get there in a consistent way.
Right.
So if they have an in-house writer who writes
Mhm.
this stuff, they can
Mhm.
ask this writer, "Hey, how did you do this? Why did you make this choice?" And you can ask that of a chatbot to an extent,
Yeah.
but A, there's an element of trust where how much you actually trust the chatbot you're talking to, and
Mhm.
B, how well can it explain it in layman's terms? Where we
True.
might not be doing the most complicated thing in the world. We're not building skyscrapers, but
Yeah.
there's there's a reason why your intro is so long, or you start
Mm-hmm.
with this section versus that section, or you pick 3 FAQ questions instead of 5.
Right.
And then I think on the freelancer side, I think what I'm seeing happening is AI is swallowing up a lot of entry level jobs for junior writers. Like
Oh.
I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of a writer who's just starting out right now,
Mm-hmm.
because the content mills, the WikiHows of the world, like they're already all experimenting with this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only a matter of time until a lot of those jobs are just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there's not really something replacing that. I think
Right.
you can't put the genie back in the bottle. I think there needs to be some adaptation
Yeah.
from everyone,
Yeah.
but the it's like a wildfire, right? Is right now we're looking at the forest that's been burnt down, and
Mm-hmm.
while we know intellectually that it's going to grow back and that it's like
Yeah.
a natural process and it's part of how it's part of how forests stay healthy,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard not to feel like it's over and it's all gone and it's never
Mm-hmm.
going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know what that looks like yet, like
Yeah.
what the entry points are for newer writers right now. But I
Right.
know that the path that I took is either much harder or it's
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Yeah, fair enough. The this issue of click for content is also about like the boom of the gig economy. And speaking
Hmm.
of changes in the industry, like if we, and I'm having friends on the side who are like, I kind of want to get into freelance writing because like
Hmm.
I've had some success with it. Like if everyone kind of goes and shifts towards like a gig kind of framework in the
Hmm.
tech space, do you think that's going to like help our community? Like we can help each other out, we can regulate things, or do you think that's going to like create more competition for us as freelancers?
I think there's a couple elements to this. I mean, you can't get around the fact that it's more competition.
Yeah, true.
Simple supply and demand means that the more freelance writers there are, is going to be to get gigs and
Yeah.
even to get the better paying gigs.
Yeah.
You kind of can't get around that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna go over some of the pros and cons here, because I find that people are very all or nothing when it comes to freelancing. You
Yeah.
hear two voices the loudest. The one voice is quit your job right now. Freelancing is so much better because of XYZ,
Yeah.
and make the choice for you, and um, you know, pay yourself first and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And then on the other side, you have people who come and say like freelancing is really hard and it has all these drawbacks that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
So, stick with your 9 to 5. And
Hmm.
like a lot of things, the truth is somewhere in the middle, and there's a lot of nuance that people are forgetting.
Yeah.
I think if I were talking to someone right now and
Hmm.
say they have a job and they're like, "Oh, I want to work for myself," whether it's like I'm sick of my boss or I feel like I'm about to get laid off or whatever,
Yeah.
I would tell them to stick with their job and then build it slowly on the side. I think
Totally.
side hustle culture has its downsides and its downfalls, and it's kind
Hmm.
of over glorified.
Yeah.
But like people need to eat and people
Yeah.
need to pay rent,
Yeah.
and I'm an aggressively pragmatic person. When
Hmm.
I was doing all these experiments and I had no income coming in, I had no spouse.
Yeah.
I still don't have kids. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have like very big expenses, so I could afford to do this for a while.
Right.
If you're like 20, you
Hmm.
have student loans,
Hmm.
your rent is $2,500 a month because everything is falling apart around us. And you're eating rice and beans, and your grocery bill is still somehow $500 a month.
Hmm.
If I was your Uncle Nick, I would tell you keep your job
Yeah.
and start building it slowly on the side. And that might
Yeah.
not look the way that you think it looks.
Hmm.
Um, I think one of the big things right now that's in demand is people that can capture attention.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Bo Burnham in an interview had a great bit about this, where he says like, the tech companies are coming for your attention. Like attention is the next thing to be colonized. We used to
Hmm.
colonize land, but we can't anymore. So
Yeah.
now we colonize attention.
Yeah.
If you and as Black Mirror-esque as that sounds, or as dystopian as that sounds,
Hmm.
if you can show that you are good at capturing attention,
Yeah.
you can use that as a portfolio to start, getting your first clients. So if you want to be a freelance writer, for example, and you start a Substack or a Medium or whatever, and you get like hundreds or thousands of people looking at your stuff, well, A, not only are you going to make money off of that, but B, you can also go to clients and say, look, I did this for myself, and I want to help you do it for yourself. I want to help you do it for you. If we look at sort of the macro side to this as well, I write content for a lot of like HR companies and stuff, so I'm often digging into this kind of data. Like there's a lot of data that says like job tenures are getting shorter, like the average amount of time you spend at a job is getting shorter. And we've all seen how cycles of layoffs and like mass hiring and mass firings like come and go. I think one of the things a lot of people are learning right now is that full-time employment is not as secure as it used to be, and not just in like the, well, you don't work 30 years for a company anymore, you gotta go watch, but in the like, you'll be hired, fired 3 months later, apply to 500 jobs, maybe get a job 6 months after that, and then who knows what happens, and you might get laid off afterwards. These like, I think something that was very abstract for a lot of people before, the way that job markets kind of contract and expand over time has become very real, and people see it happening to, in their lives and people close to them. At the end of the day, I think people moving towards a sort of gig economy aspect of things, well, it has some drawbacks, at the end of the day, it means you're taking ownership of your, your income and your ability to provide for yourself. And I think at the end of the day, no one will care about your health, your well-being, and your bank account as much as you do. And freelancing or taking on gigs is a way that you can build a buffer for yourself, so that if you get laid off, for example, or you're like 3 months without finding a job, you don't go back down to zero.
It's such a, like, as a newer freelancer compared to yourself for sure, like realizing that like if I get laid off tomorrow from like a full-time job, I'm like, that's horrifying. But if one of my clients drops me, I've got 2, 3, 4 others like sources of income, so I don't have to worry as much. So it's interesting. It does have like a rep for being kind of like scary and like for the real go-getters. And I'm like, well, if you just build it up and like stay consistent with a few things, you don't have, it's not that much of a hustle. Like you can find some like solidity in it for sure.
I think it's important though to, I think, validate the fear that comes with it, because it is scary. When you realize that it's all up to you, and it all, like your success depends a lot more on your own day-to-day actions than it used to. That can be really scary. But we live in scary times.
We do.
The world is scary. We're big boys and girls. We gotta figure it out,
I'd like to think, like, thinking about this, like everybody wants to move to a gig economy topic. Like, I'm trying to think of what the upsides would be. Like, if everybody wanted to be a freelancer instead, would we have less stories of like people getting screwed out of contracts because you have to like respect your freelancers? Or would we get more like, work-life balance because people treat them as true like contractors? But maybe that's just the golden retriever optimist in me.
I'm a lot more of a pessimist. I don't know what the pessimistic dog breed would be.
Like a bloodhound, I don't know.
Or like a
It's like a really downer dog.
This is like a deep cut, but what is that breed? Jenna Marbles had 2 dogs, and one of them was like, a whippet.
An Italian, she is an Italian Greyhound. But yes,
but I'm thinking of a whippet, but like, dogs that shake all the time. I guess that would be the pessimistic dog breed. I think if we see like a broader move towards the gig economy, we can't necessarily shy away from what that'll mean. And the reason I say that is because, we're getting back into Uncle Nick territory here. It is undeniable that women being able to choose between working and being a stay-at-home mom or running the home is a good thing. Undeniable.
Sure. Yeah.
It is also undeniable
Yeah.
that some nefarious force, some would
Mm.
say capitalism, I would call it the miasma of multiple evil individual decisions, has made it so that it is now very difficult to survive unless you're on a dual income,
Yeah.
you
True.
know. And
Mm.
if you you look back and you watch how we somehow get swindled and screwed every time something good happens, I
Yeah.
have no doubt there will be some way that if we transition to like a something where 30, 40, 50% of people are gig workers or
Hmm.
freelancers, we will get screwed over in
Yeah.
one way or another.
Yeah.
That being said,
Hmm.
I think that an economy and a job market that is more used to working with people who have more agency
Hmm.
over their time, their priorities, their
Yeah.
values, because we're sort of seeing how a lot of corporations who are like pulling funding away from LGBTQ events,
Hmm.
pride events, that kind of stuff, and they're sort of changing their tune on things like that.
Yeah.
As an employee, if you see your company do that and it clashes with your values, you don't
Hmm.
have a lot of options beyond quitting,
True.
which means getting no EI
Yeah.
or no welfare, and then trying to find another job, and then
Yeah.
trying to explain in an interview, well, I quit my last job because I didn't, our values clashed.
Hmm.
Yeah, good luck getting hired with that. But
Yeah.
if you're a
Yeah.
freelancer and you have a client who their practices are, shady and they don't match what you want, or even just like the pay isn't good enough for you,
Mm-hmm.
you can, like you were saying earlier, you drop a client, you still have your other clients left. You
Yeah.
drop a full-time job, you're at zero.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So that agency and the system having to get used to people having more agency, I think, is a net
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
I myself, one of the big reasons I love freelancing, and
Hmm.
I would not go back to being a full-time employee unless my life literally depended on it,
Hmm.
is that agency.
Yeah.
If I want to
It's
take a
nice.
Tuesday off, I just take a Tuesday off. I don't have to ask a boss for permission to take a Tuesday off. If I
Yeah.
want to work from my mom's house for whatever reason because, it's her birthday,
Yeah.
I can go and do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's worth, it might not be priceless, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting too. I like thinking about this, like everybody wants to be a gig worker thing. Like, I don't think people realize like this building it up phase to get to a point where you can take random
Hmm.
days off. Like it takes work. Like I would love to
Hmm.
know the stats of like if I had 100 wannabe freelance writers like start from zero like today and I threw like max capacity clients at them, but like for pennies, like how many of them would last in a year or in 6 months? Like
Hmm.
could like how many of those 100 people could hack it? Because I feel like it takes like you could want to be a freelancer or like self-employed all day, but it takes a certain personality to stick with it, I think. Or maybe that's me just being like, I work really hard and not everybody works as hard as me.
No, no, I think you're right, and you're on something there because so there's a famous, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not really a thought experiment. I guess it's a heuristic device rather, and it's
Mhm.
based on something that happened in World War II, where basically they wanted to better armor their planes, and I
Mhm.
can't remember if it was the Royal Air Force in the UK or if it was the Americans, but anyway,
This
they
is so
wanted to
dad of
do
you, by the way.
yeah, they wanted to do. I'm an uncle 3 times over, so this has to
There you
come
go.
out.
Yep.
But yeah, so basically they wanted to improve the armor plating on their planes.
Mhm.
So what they did is they looked at all the planes coming back
Yeah.
after like going and doing a mission, and then
Mhm.
they would catalog all the bullet holes on the
Mm.
plane.
Yeah.
And so it creates this diagram of a plane with a bunch of red dots of where all those shots were.
Mhm.
And the shots are like all over the wings and near the tail of the plane.
Yeah.
And then so they're like, cool, we're going to reinforce those areas. But the problem is because that data is just looking at the planes that came back, what it actually shows is the damage a
Oh,
plane can survive and return.
right.
Because the planes that don't come back are the ones
Yeah.
that got shot like in the cockpit or like in the
Right.
engines, you
Right, but
know?
they don't know that. Right.
Exactly. So
Mm.
they armored the wrong parts of the plane.
Yeah.
And there's an element of that in freelancing too, where all the people who are giving advice on freelancing, and it
Mm-hmm.
includes us, like all the
Mm-hmm.
people who are like writing and coaching and whatever
Mm-hmm.
else, are the
Yeah.
planes that came back. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of planes that take off and never come back, and we don't necessarily see that data because people don't really talk about that stuff.
True.
So, for every one of us, there's probably 5 freelancers who tried it for 2 months and it
Yeah.
didn't work out for them for whatever reason, and then they
Mm-hmm.
went and got a job again.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, even me, I freelanced for I think a year and a half or 2 years or so
Mm-hmm.
for getting my first job, and then didn't freelance all that much.
Yeah.
And then I got back into freelancing, but it would have been easy for me to be like, all right, I grabbed on the corporate ladder and I just want to keep climbing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all that to say, and the reason why I sort of took this long way to where I am now is because, it's really popular right now as a successful freelancer or pseudo successful in some of our cases.
Yeah.
Freelancer to be like, oh, like, don't work too much, like don't overwork and don't take these low
Yeah.
paying gigs because you're worth more than that. But
Yeah.
this is coming from people who make 6 figures a year freelancing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the majority of freelancers.
No.
The majority of freelancers need to hear, like,
Yeah.
there will be periods of time where you have to work 10, 12-hour days, where you
Mm-hmm.
will work 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And those are the moments where you'll learn whether this is something that's for you or not for you. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're less tough as a person. It doesn't mean that you deserve less. It just
Yeah.
means that maybe it's not the path for you.
For you. Yeah.
I when I started full-time freelancing again at the end of 2022, I was working 6.5 days a week. I was usually doing 10-hour days.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing 5.5 days a week, and
Yeah.
I'm usually working 8 to 9 hours. So I'm
Yeah.
generally still working more than when I did working full-time as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
But I get paid for all the time that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an employee, when you're salaried, you don't get that, which for me
Yeah.
is what I keep telling, my friends who are employees who are like, oh, I only logged off at 7 p.m. Like, you're not getting paid. Go home.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, yeah, get out of here. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Yeah, no, I like have only been doing it full time for a year,
Mm-hmm.
having so many moments in like I'm thinking even back to last fall where I'm also doing that 7 day a week grind. I'm also doing those 12-hour days and just like typing and like being
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't wait to get a corporate job because you take those low paying jobs to support yourself through 2024 2025's high rent, high grocery prices, high cost of
Mm-hmm.
living. But now that I've built it up a little bit and I've worked with clients who value my work and I've been raising my rates accordingly and I can like float with my head above water a little bit more, now I can kind of like work 4.5 days a week, work 5 days a week
Mm-hmm.
only, maybe the odd six here and there. But I don't know that everybody who dreams of freelancing wants to stick that part out, but you have to, and it's not any easier.
So freelancing is like other pursuits
Mm-hmm.
in that the work involved to grow and improve is logarithmic. And
Mm-hmm.
a logarithm goes from left to right like this and
Mm-hmm.
then like this.
Mm-hmm.
The work you have to do to get your like first $100
Mm-hmm.
as a baby freelancer who's never done this before is astronomical.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then from there, once you get to a certain point where you've built up a portfolio, you've had like your first couple of clients who have good things to say about you,
Mm-hmm.
getting your rates or getting your income from like $100, say $100 a month
Mm-hmm.
to $500 a month is a lot
Yeah.
easier than getting from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And then 500 to 1,000 is easier. And then it gets easier in a lot of ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so you get to a point when you're advanced enough in this career where the amount of effort you have to put in for larger results is a lot smaller than it
Mm-hmm.
used to be. I think if 2016 me saw the things I'm struggling with now and the way that I approach them,
Mm-hmm.
he'd be like, "This is so much easier. This is so easy." Because I mean,
Yeah.
back then, like I was sending hundreds of pitches a week for sure.
Oh,
I was maybe
yeah.
sending dozens a day
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted any work that I could have.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm a lot more selective in the work that I take.
Mm-hmm.
So finding work is a lot easier than it was back then because the list is shorter and my
Yeah.
skills are better and I have
Mm-hmm.
a portfolio and I have clients like I had a sales call today with somebody who they were asking for my portfolio, and I just send them my portfolio, and there's
Mhm.
20 bylines on it.
Yeah.
Whereas back then I had maybe 3 bylines,
Yeah.
which is a lot less impressive, and which weren't on with like big companies or big publications.
Switching gears a bit here, what comes to mind is like some of the best advice you've been given as a freelancer?
So this is a bad question for me because I'm a total recluse. So I don't talk to anyone most of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
So
oh,
wonder why we're friends. We're so
yeah, yeah. No, you're the yapper, and I just
yeah,
hide in my cave.
and the yin to your yang for sure. When I
I have
started
to
out,
really, I have to
yeah,
really dig.
when I started out, my friend Nick, another freelancer, told me, keep with me still. Don't be precious with your writing.
Hmm.
Because I tend to, as a starting out, you want to cling to everything and like you're too scared to give it out because it feels vulnerable, even if it's just marketing copy. And the second thing I always keep in mind is like make it exist first and make it better later.
Hmm.
Which I don't know if necessarily was originated from you or you found it
No,
and
that's
passed it
been
to me.
around
I can't
for a
remember.
thousand years, I'm sure.
Oh,
I'm
I
sure it's
would
on a
believe
clay
it.
tablet somewhere.
but
Another
it's so
variation
true.
is perfect is the enemy of good. Or
Oh,
no,
there,
perfect is the enemy of done. That's the
oh,
one.
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like on those days when I'm like, I want to draft like 4 to 6 like pieces today. I'm like, just bang them out and like make them bad. Just make them be a thing. And
Hmm.
then tomorrow we'll go edit them and make them great. So I still the Mondays I think of that every Monday.
I think so. I do have. I'm gonna pull this out of my code book so I get it right. Hold on.
You and your resources.
Me and reading. It's because I'm reading Company of One by Paul Jarvis right now, and I
Oh.
think this quote is it touches on something we are talking about earlier, where as more folks join the gig economy, there's going to be more competition, and it's
Mm-hmm.
inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to look at other freelancers, other people, or whoever else, and be
Mm-hmm.
envious, right? You
Mm-hmm.
you look at someone who's making say $200,000 a year, and you're making 50, and you're like, well, I wish I was making $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or you look at someone who's got your dream client that you pitched
Mm-hmm.
10 times and never got a response.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but here's a quote. It says, "When we give in to envious feelings, the best we can hope for is second best, since we're focused on copying someone else's path and not forging our own."
I love that.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to source advice and information from a lot of sources and to keep educating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the key to doing that without feeling envious is
Mm-hmm.
to remember that if you're just trying to copy what someone else is doing, you're not going to get exactly the same result.
Yeah, anyway.
You're
Yeah.
you're going to get something a little different that might not be as right for you um as if you sort of kind of did your own thing. And a
Right.
big part of that is facing fears and experimenting with stuff,
Right.
and like, an example of that is, digital products, online courses, that kind of stuff is really popular right now.
Mm.
I don't think I would be able to film an online course and sell it for money and make any amount of money doing that.
You don't
My
think?
No, like my advice is all off the cuff. I wouldn't be able to build a curriculum. I would like be
Yeah.
standing in front of a piece of paper and be like, I don't got anything to teach these kids, But
Yeah.
when people ask me, then it sort of comes pouring out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
So
Yeah, I think I could do it. I think I could fucking crush it.
yeah, I think you could too.
I'm one bad client away from being a grifter,
You're
baby.
also you're also a lot better on camera than I am, so that helps.
Nah, you're great. I think you're better than you think you are. But we covered a lot of topics today. I kind of just want to end on something fun. Like, what's the best? Like, I bet a lot of people who read my newsletter also read for pleasure. What's the best book you've read so far this year?
The best book I've read so far this year. Okay, this answer is going to be a little boring on the surface, but I promise it's not. It's The Great Gatsby.
Oh yeah, the best. Wow,
I hadn't read it ever before, and
Fitzgerald.
so yeah, and so my only knowledge of The Great Gatsby was everyone complaining about having to read it in high school,
Right.
and I read it during like I think a month or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I finished it while sitting on the porch
Mm-hmm.
in the evening, sitting across from my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big themes of that book is there are careless people who go around just ruining things for everyone, and then
Yeah.
just kind of moving on with their lives because it doesn't affect them at all.
Right.
And it fits into this sort of broader theory I have right now. It's not really my theory. It's collected from a bunch of different places, but how time is cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
And, that book was written almost 100 years ago, maybe even
Mm-hmm.
more than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it describes an era of such massive, vapid excess, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And and I look at where we're at right now. We're in 2025. We're in what would be the Roaring Twenties 100 years ago.
True.
And you can sort of see patterns repeat themselves. You can see there was the Spanish flu in near the end of World War One and
Yeah.
into the early 20s. We had COVID
Yeah.
very recently,
True.
and I see a lot of parallels, and I think what I love about The Great Gatsby is just how timeless it is. And I think
Mm-hmm.
reading it in high school in 2008 or 2010, I'm showing my age now, it probably doesn't have that same kind of impact, but
Yeah.
I feel like reading it in the age of, you know, TikTok and influencers and all the rest of it just kind of
Mm-hmm.
shows how when someone writes about something they know and they write really honestly and really openly, like
Mm-hmm.
Hemingway said, you write about what hurts.
Right.
I think it just creates an artifact
Mm-hmm.
that's just timeless.
Yeah. I love that. Some would say evergreen content.
Yes,
But yeah.
evergreen content.
So I love that. I haven't read it either. I should, but that's cool. That's good to know.
It's short. You're gonna plow
Yeah,
through it in like two
rip
days.
through it one sitting for sure. Okay, cool. Where could clients or otherwise find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn as Nick Bouchard. I'm on Substack at the Wordmerk. My website is thewordmerk.com. If
Hmm.
you just Google Wordmerk, you'll probably find me
True.
somehow.
Yeah, I'm gonna plug your book as well. If you're a fantasy reader, go read Fate's Conscripts. You can get it on Amazon really easily, and I'll put that in there. Thanks so much for chatting. We went way over, but this was fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks
Yeah.
for pretending that I'm wise.
You are wise. We love hearing from Uncle Nick, and I'm sure we'll have you on another time. Thanks, Doc.
Cool.